The latest in a long line of replacements for the legendary Ferguson is Ruben Amorim, leaving Portuguese champions Sporting to join the Red Devils. Manchester United are a European super club, the English equivalent of Real Madrid. The prestige and pure financial power of United's brand has meant they can afford to be as unsuccessful as they have been since Alex Ferguson stepped down a decade ago, yet they're still a European superpower. Being a super club, it's absolutely essential for them to appoint a manager who has either rebuilt a super club or has successfully managed one. Think Carlo Ancelotti, Zinedine Zidane, or, dare I say it, Pep Guardiola. What I'm saying is that there's a very clear set of criteria for a Man United manager, and that's as follows. A Manchester United manager has to have managed in the big leagues in Europe, and by that I mean England, Germany, Italy or Spain. They need to have managed a top 4 team in those big leagues. They need to have solid experience in the Champions League. And finally, the manager's credibility and reputation need to be on the rise, ideally coming to the peak of their career. Think of Jurgen Klopp post-Dortmund. Let's take a look at Man United's managers post-Fergie. David Moyes. Yes, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but his close relationship with Ferguson may have blinkered Sir Alex to the reality of what Moyes was capable of. He had a highly impressive record with Everton, changing them from relegation candidates into a solid top 6 team, which was great work. But that's not the same as operating at the top of the table, and it showed. His complete lack of experience with top 4 teams and 0 Champions League experience was a recipe for disaster, and he didn't last a season. Moyes' next 2 roles at Real Sociedad and Sunderland were also failures, although he did much better at a mid-table club in West Ham in the years after that. Put simply, Man United were a step too far for him at any point in his career.
But the job's to win football matches. I mean, there's a lot talked about style, but more important is to win, and we didn't do that today.
Moyes' worst result for United? The final nail in the coffin, 2-0 loss at his old club Everton in April 2014.
Gaal. Louis van Gaal.
Then Louis van Gaal, a huge name. He had all the experience, winning a European Cup with Ajax and league titles at Barcelona, but he arrived at United over a decade past his peak. His United stint was sandwiched between 2 terms as head coach of the Netherlands, which is a completely different task to head coach at a mega club like United. His last major club job before he took over at United was at Bayern between 2009 and 2011, which ended with the club in 3rd place that season. Simply unacceptable for a mega club like Munich. Van Gaal in the year 2000? Fantastic. Van Gaal in 2014? Not a great plan. Van Gaal's worst United result? Right at the end in April 2016, Man United, who had an excellent record against Spurs under Ferguson, were brushed aside 3-0 at White Hart Lane. Jose Mourinho had the greatest CV of them all. He'd won titles in 3 top leagues and won the Champions League with 3 different clubs.
Do you know what this means?
Mourinho's issue was his decline became very steep towards the end of his tenure at Real Madrid in 2013. Does anyone remember his final Chelsea season, ending 10th in the league in 2016? Mourinho joined United right after that, and he never returned to the success of his peak years at Porto, Chelsea and the final Champions League win at Inter. The decline in the status of the jobs he's been offered since he left Old Trafford reflects his falling stock. From United to Spurs, then on to a Roma team who haven't played in the Champions League since 2019, with no Scudetto in 24 years, and now to the football backwater of Turkey. Mourinho in the year 2006? Unbelievable. Mourinho in 2016? Sorry, not happening.
My kids are so small, maybe they think I win every year, because every season they see the father to be champion. One day they have to go down to reality.
His now famous quote that guiding United to 2nd place in the Premier League in 2017-18 was one of his greatest achievements looks more impressive as time goes by.
If I tell you, for example, that I consider one of the best jobs of my career to finish 2nd with Manchester United in the Premier League, you say this guy is crazy.
Mourinho's worst defeat as Man United boss? in October 2016 taking his new team back to Stamford Bridge and being thrashed 4-0 by Chelsea.
And I'm still saying that. I'm saying the same now as I did with the first time we played them.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was next, a man with no experience of managing in a top 4 league or a top team in those leagues. 0 Champions League experience and only a few years of managerial experience. There was an initial upturn in results once he took over at United, but very soon his lack of experience was brutally exposed. If we're being brutally honest, his heroics in a Man United shirt as a player carried a lot of weight when it came to giving Ole a chance at the manager's job. This is a perfect example of a fantastic player not translating their talent to management. To believe a legendary ex-player will solve your problems has failed so many times in the past. Think Gianfranco Zola, Frank Lampard or Maradona. Solskjaer's worst defeat? Being beaten 5-0 at Old Trafford by Liverpool.
You are sure?
Erik ten Hag. Yes, he did well at Ajax, but he didn't manage in a big league and therefore had no Champions League experience with a big club. In retrospect, Ten Hag needed a spell at a mid-table team in a Big 4 league first. He was tactically lost, his high-press transitional style still unsuccessful after almost 3 years of coaching. Man United were just too big for him, and the FA Cup final win last season was actually a curse, as instead of taking time to plan for their next appointment, Man United stuck with something that wasn't working and are now left making this mid-season managerial change. Ten Hag's worst defeat? Liverpool 7, yes, 7, Man United 0 in March 2023 at Anfield.
Because finally we will go at net and kill and we will win more games.
Now, Ruben Amorim, I would argue, is probably the worst of all these managerial appointments so far. He's never managed in a big league and never managed a big club in the Champions League. Yes, he has great potential, but nowhere near enough to take over at a super club like Man United. His next move should have been to a club like Dortmund, Villarreal or Brighton, so he could prove his tactics worked in a competitive league. The Glazers' running of Man United has been atrocious. Malcolm Glazer took full control in June 2005, leveraging finance against the club's assets and loading the club with over £500 million of debt. Fans have been furious at the over £1 billion it has cost the Glazers to service this debt over the years, whilst at the same time, the Glazer family have continuously taken dividends from the club. Since Ferguson left, another £1 billion has been wasted on players that haven't provided a league title in that whole time. And now United find themselves not even in conversations about a league title anymore. Old Trafford is now famously living up to its name, poorly maintained and reflecting the Glazers' continual lining of their own pockets instead of reinvesting into the club. The Glazers are like the rich kid who can afford anything they want. They don't have to plan or think about their decisions, they just jump at the easiest thing available to them. And my prediction is that Man United as a club will suffer greatly by jumping from one buzzword manager to another. The Glazers' running of Man United has been absolutely dysfunctional, and only with the arrival of Sir Jim Ratcliffe have better long-term decisions started to be made.
Since Sir Alex stepped down, so something is not, they're not firing on all cylinders, so I think.
But I'm sorry guys, that doesn't include Ruben Amorim. His appointment feels like an effort by the Glazers to appease their critics and a desperate announcement to the stock market in an attempt to boost the stock price. This won't last.